Hey, 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 party people. Welcome to Mind Power Meets Mystic. This is Cinthia Varkovisser, your spiritual shit disturber, also known as Mystic. Today, Ms. Michelle Walters, my fab friend and podcast co-host, is taking this episode off. We decided not too long ago during season 6, that's right, we are in season 6 of Mind Power Meets Mystic, that we would like to cover topics that were a little bit deeper and a little bit harder hitting because we wanted to make sure that we were truly of service to our audience. So I said, "Hey, Michelle, don't worry about this episode. I got you." Since that happened, and I created this beautiful outline for today's episode, my brother suddenly passed away. And so far, not so far, but it's been about 10, definitely less than 2 weeks. Um, and no, I'm not a heartless bitch. I am actually in a calm space from a healing that I had, and I figure the grief will come again. So this is a nice time to do this episode. We're going to talk about obligations. All right. Um, Obligations are a funny little thing. It is an energy that tinges your water, I guess is the best way of your clear water of energy, your clear energetic value. And an obligation is something that is a have to, must, should based on something in your life. It could be from your family, what they consider important. It could be from your work. It could be from social expectations. It can be from any space other than your absolute heart. Now, we have some personal obligations, such as making ourselves stay healthy, that we get up and go and do the things that bring us joy. That doesn't always come to the forefront, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. So, my brother and I have been estranged for 9 years, and the disconnect was at my brother's request. And during this time, I had always hoped that we could reconnect, and I just wanted to love him and whatever that looked like for him, being siblings or being acquaintances or having an understanding that I'm just not his, family flavor and moving along. So to hear about his passing suddenly was shocking and shattering. And I really know what the word gutted means, the British word gutted. The nice thing is that this person who was with Lance when he passed um, looked through all the social media and checked out all the Varkovissers to find me. And while my brother Lance was, on his way to the hospital or in the hospital, she took the time to find me, friend me, send messages, and leave voice messages wherever she could. At And that was done at 2:30 in the morning. So I'm incredibly grateful. But where I am right now is um, what are my choices with this man's body that I call my brother, that I love so much, and I want to be respectful. And he had a life that I know nothing about, and people I believe that are mourning him that I have no way or very small windows of providing a space where we can all grieve together. Um, this thing about obligation came about when I was taking phone calls and sending notifications to family members and, really close friends. And they would say, "Well, what are you going to do with Lance's body? And Is there going to be a memorial service? If there's a memorial service, will it be online? Is there any way that it's going to be in person? And if it's in person, is it going to be close to you, or is it going to be close to where your brother lived? And, you know, shoot, I don't even know where my brother lived, much less any of those questions. And so here I am with this thing a couple weeks ago that I had outlined for our episode about obligations and how to define them, how to um, flip it around into a strength. And I am now the number one client for this episode, which is freaking hilarious to me. So let's talk about what obligations are. I think we already talked about that, to be honest, which is it is an expectation or a perceived expectation from family, work, uh, social situations, you name it, but it's not in alignment with your personal integrity or your energetic value at that time. All right. There are certain things that I still do, and I'm first generation American, which is I have an open door policy. That's the way my mom was, and that's the way, I am too. It's a little bit of a challenge when the person that you're living with has a different social value, and so there's a different thing. So there's an obligation there, but I am digressing. Let's talk about how obligations just ain't good for you, you know? Here's why. A lot of people, especially the people who listen here, are givers and they know that they are valuable, but they find that the people that they love and they want to be of service to are even more valuable. And so it's really simple for us to be in the back seat. Now, this episode came about because I had clients who were having challenges, and they were not small challenges, they were big challenges that had to do with, you know, can I handle someone who asked if they could stay with me because they will be houseless soon? And another one with, what am I going to do with my spouse in this situation? I can't believe I said spouse. That's so weird. My partner in this situation, because this is really important to them, but it's not in alignment with my values. So these are these are really big things. It's not just about, water cooler gossip or anything like that. Um, and we had to sit down and go, okay, what is obligation and what is it that is our truth, right? When we are in service, it's a time where we tend to get sick, we as givers, because we know that we can get the job done and do it well and make the other person better, and then we will take care of ourselves later. But later becomes later and later and later. The other thing is, unless we're coming from a space of generosity, and that's actually another episode that I had talked about. I don't know the name of it, but apologies. But it's about when you are generous of spirit and you have this abundance of energy in your heart, then and that giving gives nothing of your energy, then yeah, then it's always going to be a yes. It's actually stops energy if you're in a generous spirit and then you say no. However, we're not always like that. We're not in that generous. We don't have the wherewithal to be in this 100% generous state. And what that leads to is regret, remorse, and resentment. Those are not the 3 R's I like. I like reading, writing, and arithmetic. I don't like regret, remorse, and resentment. We are in a space right now, in this climate, this energetic climate, where it's about really getting to understand other people, about connection, about elevating, and obligation for others is really not in alignment with what is needed here in this space. Now, before I go any further, I want to remind you, you're listening to Mind Power Meets Mystic. I am Cinthia Varkovisser. You are Mystic. Please write and review us. Uh, Tell your friends about us because we have a lot of information that we'd like to share, and we're hoping that you're helping us spread the word to share. Okay, to go back. So we don't like the 3 R's of regret, remorse, and resentment. And when we're in those spaces, what happens is we don't have the regenerative energy in order for us to move along. And isn't that what we're here to do? We're here to become bigger, better, brighter human beings and transcend this 3D world, be bigger than our physical bodies, and just, crush it out in this world. So, what a lot of people will say is create boundaries and create spaces of security and have these conversations and say, this does not work for me. And I say, yes, slow clap, bravo. That is absolutely correct. However, there are other things that you can do as well. One is let's find out what the hell is an obligation for and why is it in our lives? So, what I like to do is these 3 things. One is find out what is your cause for pause. Anytime that we hesitate before we make an answer or we say our answer, that's a cause for pause. Is it, is it because we're afraid? And is it a personal fear of getting bigger or all these things that it's a challenge? Well, then no, that's not an obligation. However, if we're sitting here wondering how are these people in our lives going to be affected, then yeah, that is an obligation. Then we're in obligation land. And what we want to do is not get down to the nitty-gritty of it because that's not what it's all about. Just go, oh, this is in the obligation arena. And so now we have to go to the next step. The next step from that I would recommend for you is to lean in on somebody and let them create space so that you can work it out, or maybe they can offer suggestions so that you could be working it out with someone else. We are such givers that it is important that we lean in on someone, because if we can make this decision with the help of other people's energy, then we are not draining our own energy as we commit to something that we don't necessarily want to do. So lean in and see if there are any other solutions that can happen. I've seen so many brilliant decisions being made just by talking it out, because the energy gets back flowing. It's not limited by all the things that we need to do or have to do. And now we're in a place of creativity, right? Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And then the third is to make sure that we are good with what can be the consequence, right? So for me, I'm not sure what am I going to do with my brother's body, because we hadn't talked about that. I need to sit and find out what part of me is obligated to do certain things, and what is it that really feels good in my heart. Same thing with a celebration of life. What does that look like? What are my responsibilities are before it becomes an obligation? Because I want to meet these people in my brother's lives. I want to hear some things about, how he's been. I want to share my love for him in this space. But there comes a point where we go from sharing or something into obligation. And it's a very fine line that we can slip into. So it's very important that we do that. Um, and, and so what are the consequences? Well, the consequence for me be that if I don't do it, that my brother's community will hate me and think that I'm a bitch. Is that something that I can live with? And if I can't, again, is it through people pleasing or things like that? So um, the goal of obligation is to sit and find out where are we still stuck and what is our truth. The more we find out what we're stuck in, we have no choice but to sit and find out what our truth is, right? It's kind of like if you're going to separate the wheat from the chaff, at the end of the day, you're going to have wheat and you're going to have chaff. So you're going to look at the chaff and go, that's all the shit. And now you have to look at all the wheat that's in your basket. And those are your nuggets of truth. So it's important. It's important to go and do these things. It's also a great place for self-care. It's a place where you are honoring yourself, and it's a great clarifier of who you are as a human being and as a spirit and as a wise soul. So let's go back very quick and do a recap. Recap is obligations uh, are a colored tinge on your energetic value, that there are three ways that I recommend outside of that of setting your boundaries, reframing your obligations as choices, and, setting some limits. It is um, find out what your cause for pause is, right? That's number one. Number two, lean in and ask for help so that it can help clarify. And number three, find out, not find out, write down the consequences. And just so you know, those consequences may never show up, but it's one of those things where you have prepared yourself so that you can respond to something that happens rather than react. In martial arts, we always want to be in response mode because response comes from a space of calm and clarity, where reaction comes from fear and or emotion or a past experience. So I hope that you can glean some nuggets of help for you in your obligations. We are in a place right now of holidays and other things where a lot of times we find ourselves in these silly little obligations. I hope that you find out what your truth is, that you have an amazing day that's in alignment to your spirit, and that you shine even brighter so that you can help out all those that you love. Take care.